2, 1.
Hey, good morning. This is Jeff Runquist back again, and we're continuing to answer the questions that you folks are submitting about our wines and the operation here. And got a couple of questions that are related to one another about the malolactic fermentation. And we've got one from George in Granite Bay and Stanley down in San Diego. And the malolactic fermentation is a secondary fermentation that typically occurs after the alcoholic fermentation, and it's conducted not by yeast but by bacteria, and it's converting malic acid, the acid that's primarily found in apples, to lactic acid, the acid typically found in milk. It's a more tart, more harsh acid. The malic is softened into the lactic. And Stanley's question is, why is it that almost all of the red wines go through the malolactic fermentation? And the reason is really not so much sensory in terms of you being able to taste a difference or that the red wine is improved because it's gone through the malolactic fermentation. As a matter of fact, a lot of red wines, it might be a little flat and lacking in acidity, might have been better if they hadn't gone through malolactic, and the brightness and the fruit and the crisp character that comes from the acidity would be not so compromised. But typically, historically, and in the 40 years I've been in the business, the malolactic fermentation is occurring because we want it to occur here in the winery and not in the bottle on the grocery store shelf or in your cellar or prior to you consuming the wine. Malolactic fermentation does involve the evolution of carbon dioxide, and the bacteria that grows in the wine can cause a cast or a cloudiness to the wine. So we prefer to have the malolactic fermentation occur here in the winery, where we can control it, where we can make sure the wine is clarified and not full of carbon dioxide prior to putting it in the bottle. So typically it's been a historical thing that we want the malolactic to occur here where it's controlled and you don't get a fizzy wine or a wine that's cloudy. Now, George, on the other hand, is asking a question about one of the byproducts of the malolactic fermentation, which is diacetyl, or the buttery character most typically associated with Chardonnay. And the question is from George, why do I taste a butteriness in the Chardonnay, but I don't taste a butteriness in the Cabernet? And the Cabernet has also gone through malolactic. Well, there's a number of reasons, George, and it can be quite complicated, but principally, there's enough other things going on in Cabernet, flavor-wise, that the threshold for diacetyl in Cabernet is about 15 times higher than it is when it comes to Chardonnay. So the same amount of diacetyl is going to be more evident in Chardonnay than Cabernet. There's some technical reasons why you can make, during the process of the malolactic fermentation, you can end up with more or less diacetyl. But the principal reason why you taste it in the Chardonnay and not the Cabernet is the threshold levels are different, and it's much easier to taste and smell a smaller quantity of diacetyl when it is in a white wine versus a red. So that's it on malolactic. Please keep sending your questions. They're a joy to read, and hopefully my answers will provide you with a little insight.